Hello, hello, hello. Alright, so today I'm working on some artwork here. Stream. Got some things I need to touch up right quick. Part of it, and then also got to add some things. I also want to replace these because I don't want those gun towers anymore. Scale figures. Important to have decent scaling on these things. Here I am on Tube channel. Alright. So, because of the limitations that I'm working under, these games are probably never going to quite hit AAA levels of quality. I'll just go ahead and say that out. Say that now. But that doesn't mean that I and whoever I work with can't do our darndest to get the best possible product. Think enough of our work to pay money for it. That's a big deal. Come on. Change this around because I don't like that texture on there. I don't want to reuse that other texture. That is going to put some pretty big screws right there. But we'll see. I may change my mind about this again. We shall see. Also want to make adjustments to this one. Something I don't want to grab and make sure I have grab. it's about as thick as the other one. Water tower one. That'll do for now. Basically do the same thing to this one because this is the destroyed model here. Should be pretty much identical. This is fine. Fine for the time being. Until I find out otherwise. Ha! My hiring. That's funny. Especially coming from you. Especially coming from you and what you know know about internal operations right now. UV maps that. Pull that back over that way. Duplicate it. That's supposed to mean, huh? Let's see here. Call this a wall for now, but we need to basically standardize on some things. This is all stuff I have, as of yet, undecided on. I may scrap some of that. I may keep some of it. Yeah. We'll see. There's a lot of stuff I'm bringing over from Frontiers Reach 1 that I literally just kind of, like the stuff I made for Frontiers Reach 1 was very much slapped together. Don't know anything. Yeah. I bet you don't. Right. Basically, what I need here is city walls. Come on. this off. Oop. Whole thing. Not a partial thing, the whole thing. X-ray. Yeah, Ray's a cantankerous old guy for all sorts of reasons. Hard to get along with unless you're somebody who can argue with him. I actually don't have very many arguments with him myself. We do have anything that looks or sounds like an argument. We're usually like having a discussion and verifying sources and all that stuff, so but I'm used to doing that with him. He's not used to doing that with just anybody. So but I totally understand. Of course, someone's running a vacuum cleaner in the background. Eat those. Don't want a full what? A little over a half wall. Five. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hear you. That can be kind of difficult sometimes. There's a movie probably one of my favorite movies, though I don't really like watch it all the time. I don't watch it religiously, but it kind of underscores some of the differences between Americans, or really just people, not necessarily Americans, but people who like born and raised here in the United States, and people who come here to get away from other countries and who can meld well with the people here. But like the entirety of the United States, more so the United States than any other country in the Americas, was like founded on this idea that you can essentially remove yourself from civilized society to such an extent that you just don't have to put up with it. So, like, many Americans just have this mindset that they should never have to put up with the outside world. That runs very contrary to the way the outside world views America. Especially like post-World War II America. I get it. We're the defenders of democracy, the liberators of the unliberated. There's also just a lot of people here who, like, they want to stay in their own corner of the world and not acknowledge the rest of it. That basically describes most of my family. And most of my friends. Technically, it describes most of the people here in the United States. But the quote that I wanted to bring up from one of my favorite movies, there's a movie called Last of the Mohicans. And in that movie, a character who is of English descent, but whose family was killed out on the frontier, and he was taken in by a tribe of Indians. Thing on the left? Oh, that's my UV map. Basically, this face right here gets a texture on it. And I can put any texture I want on it. This is like an old school way of doing texture mapping. One of my favorite movies is a movie called Last of the Mohicans, and in there is a character who is of English descent, but his parents were killed and he was taken in by a tribe of Native Americans, or Indigenous Americans, I think is what they call themselves now. And he ends up meeting an English woman who made her way out to the American frontier, and he's talking to her in one scene, and she asks, I gotcha. He's talking to her in one scene, and she asks, or no, she says something about not understanding it here in the Americas. Like, it's just like nothing makes sense to her as an English woman of high nobility. Maybe not necessarily high nobility. I know her father was like a military commander or something like that. But, at one point, I have to split these faces. Yeah, she asks, like, she's talking to the dude who was orphaned, and he just straight up tells her, "You're never going to understand this place. You're not from here, and you shouldn't even waste your time trying to understand it." Now, that's a very nice way of putting it, but I think most people probably can't understand it once they, like, live here long enough. Like, things have changed over the years for certain, but just to give you an example, I found my grandfather's memoir a few years ago, and I'd had it on my hands before, but I hadn't quite sat down and really just read through it. But my grandfather Theophilus, his family came over here in the late 1600s, early 1700s, somewhere in there, and they went out to the Kentucky frontier, because that's what it was called then, like in the 1730s. They lived and died on the same plot of land in the middle of nowhere in the woods in Kentucky for almost 300 years. We know this because we went out to the land and found 7 generations of graves out in the middle of the woods where the family had lived. And reading through his memoir, I think it was like the 1930s is when he was focusing most of his memory effort on. He talked about how they were so isolated that they didn't have doctors, so they would have to stay up all night and just do the best they could for people, and sometimes the best you could do just wasn't enough. And then when they did get a doctor, the doctor was like 2 or 3 miles away, and they didn't have horses, so they had to walk everywhere, and they didn't have cars, and yeah, people still just died quite frequently. Either they just didn't take care of themselves, or they didn't have access to medicine. And so that mindset, that reality is still very present within the American, I guess you could call it the genetic memory, I guess. Not sure if that makes any sense, but that whole mindset of going without and doing without, as long as you're free to separate yourself and not have anything to do with other people. Like, that mindset still permeates pretty strong here, especially with the older generations. I've met many Europeans over the years and English people who find that whole mindset just utterly perplexing, because they just don't understand it. I think they're capable of it. It's just like you have to find a way to explain it such that they would be able to do so. From all of Europe. Not sure I follow on that one there. America has too much power to not attempt to understand their mindset. I completely agree. We have entirely too much power. Why I keep telling my European friends, you guys need to like take more of that power share, because like I understand it's quite a burden to bear that stuff and to have a large standing military, but now more than ever, it's not good to have all of that power wrapped up into one national entity. Even people I know who support Donald Trump, even they will tell you that, because part of it's because they just don't want to spend the money on it, but kind of sick and tired of being the national security horse for the entire world. But also because they see it as they have a keen sense of the fact that we're a nation that changes hands every few years in terms of our government control, and they don't want one side or the other to have too much power. Oh, no worries. I actually don't mind explaining things as best I can, but I'm also not an expert, so I do the best I can. I'm just I'm I will say that if like something turns into a heated political debate amongst myself, and I do consider myself something of a plebeian when it comes to political conversations, because I just don't have as much information as I should. So when something does kind of go in that direction, I do have a tendency to like, okay, we're going to kill this conversation, because I don't know enough to hold strong political debates, and most other people don't either. I'm also, especially like when it comes to like debating with people from other countries, I have no idea what their media tells them or the perspective that their media throws out there. So I have a tendency to just avoid those types of conversations with people not from the United States entirely. Because, again, I have no idea what they get in terms of media. I don't want to lambast somebody for saying something that sounds off because they were basically told or given inaccurate information by the media that they have over there. Look at it. Gotcha. Pull those up here. Some holster ideas for the weapons. Ah. And this thing. Funny. Yeah, if I was interested, if I wanted to have a really well thought out political debate with someone, I would first ask, well, what are they saying in your country, where you come from, and go into a little bit more detail about the East versus West perspective on things. Kind of interesting because, like, especially now we're getting like all sorts of crazy mixed news. Like, I don't follow Donald Trump myself, but the news that I get from other family members is that on the one hand he wanted to support Ukraine, and now I guess he's accusing Zelensky of being a liar and all sorts of other stuff. So I don't follow it myself. Don't follow it well enough to have a educated opinion on it, especially. What I will say is I'm old enough to remember when George W. Bush literally threatened the whole world with, you're either against us or you're with the terrorists. So, I mean, not saying it's an upgrade, but it is a stroke of change. Also old enough to remember when people over here worshipped, almost quite literally worshipped, George W. Bush as if he was sent from God to the United States to lead us through a dark time in our history. Which our government then admitted that they had all of the information to stop and just didn't do anything. Like, if you need any conspiracy theory about 9/11, just know that they already admitted they knew what was going to happen, did nothing about it. So that's literally what was in the 9/11 Commission report. Now they're talking about how they're going to reopen investigations, and I'm like, this has already been answered. They already admitted they didn't do anything when they had all the information to do something. But anyways. Yeah, stuff, things. That's technically... Is that technically the halfway point? Kind of the halfway point. But not entirely the halfway point. Not exactly the halfway point. Went down just a tad. Not too. Add this here. Edge. Mark seam. I haven't gone over the voice yet. I'm planning to do that this weekend. I trust you did a pretty good job. I also have to pull up the map for that voiceover that it's gonna, or the map that voiceover is gonna get tied to, and basically like start working it in once I've got it cut up. That's another thing. I'll have to cut it up into individual files and then everything worked up from there. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Five. Yeah, you can join. I'll have to make sure I send out a message to you. Make sure I give you the opportunity to hop in. We'll do it outside of the normal BAP chat if that's more comfortable for you. Boy, that was almost really, really close. A little bit of stretching will be fine. Gotcha. All good. Just want to make sure that, because I have to have a low level of stress when I'm working on this stuff. If I get too stressed out, I get too hyper-focused on stupid stuff, and next thing you know, I'm not able to really get any work done. So I try to maintain a low level of stress when I'm working, so I'm totally fine with removing to a private chat if that's what we've got to do. Usually I stop at the 1 hour mark, but I think today I'm just gonna go for as long as I'm doing work. Maybe 2 would be appropriate here. I have to add some supports in here as well. One moment. Had to grab a swig of late night coffee. This is a little bit thicker than typical stuff, so I'm gonna come over this somewhere over here. Whoop. It's not quite what I wanted. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm trying my best to line these up so that the edges of the UV shells, which are essentially seams, line up with naturally occurring seams on the texture. That way we can hide our seams with naturally occurring seams. It's actually really important because it kind of helps sell the artwork as something that's more than just a 3D model. Got this one. Back this up a little bit here. So this is actually an older modeling technique, or older UV mapping technique that stems from the days of, like, I mean forever, like Nintendo 64 and PS1 environment artists would do this. Did it all the way into the, like, I mean, I know Bungie was still doing it for Destiny 2. Because you can go through their artwork and see where they did it. Where they used what were essentially tiled materials with trim kits. So this is technically the trim kit idea extrapolated into like stupidity. Scale figure over here. I live with that. I think I can live with that. Alright, so, but, here, delete. Come on, it's not what I wanted. That back that way. Get here. $12.5. That back down. Yep, you can definitely see it with the old Jedi Knight series. Absolutely. So I actually don't want all of these pillars. What I want to do here do a mirror. Now, anything I do to the one pillar will be reflected in the others. Seam right there. Mark seam. Unwrap. Now there's another little trick here. Not sure if this is possible in other 3D programs. I imagine it is. You may have to get a plugin for it. But in Blender, it is a native function. I can select a face after I've gotten it all straightened out. Select the rest of the shell here. Hit F3. Because I use it so often, it it shows up on the top list. I hit follow active quads, and it flattens it out for me. Like come in here, I'm actually going to turn this sideways. Going to grab this, and we're gonna actually put this down. Texture. So for this, I'm thinking probably something along the lines of baseboard texture here. It looks okay. I can live with it. I'll put it like that. But I think I want to scale this up just a tad to get a little bit more detail in here. Back to my normal map. Now, if you look here, you can see some weird stretching. There's a way to fix this by reinforcing the edge. Reinforcing it with a couple of edge loops. What's essentially happening there is we don't have enough topology here to avoid any kind of stretching. Add a little bit more here. Help soften that up a little bit. Actually, not going to duplicate that. I'm going to duplicate the base mesh here. For this, because that's technically what I typically use as a floor texture, regular old concrete on top. Now for some reinforcements. Alright, so what I want to do here, because I've got this nice mesh here as a reference. Okay, I'm gonna grab this edge loop here. Delete everything else. I want to extrude. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Extrude. Not the bevel. Delete this. And we want to delete all stuff that's going to be underneath something, like new constructions. Going to be portions of the campaign that use clean, non-age damaged textures. Instructions. It's kind of difficult to say because at the point in the timeline that we're at, like, it's 40 some years after the end of the Frontier War from FR1, and a lot of the construction efforts have basically been taken up by maintenance efforts. There's not a whole lot of new construction going on. There's been a lot of rebuilding in the past 10 years, but they're basically salvaging what's left over from the war. Most of the locations in FR1 are basically, or were decimated by fighting, so they more or less don't exist in the second game. It was all new structures made with salvaged stuff. That said, a lot of this stuff, it looks a little bit more weathered than it actually should be. Like, obviously here we've got rust here, but like the concrete here, as dirty as it looks, it should look a little bit less dirty once it's in engine, so it shouldn't look as dirty, I guess that's what I'm saying, by the game engine. But I don't have any new constructions planned, mind you. That doesn't mean that those plans can't change or that new constructions won't be added later. I just don't have anything planned currently. This one down there. I know what that is. Set that to the side. I want the average of these two edges. Texture again. A little bit more variation in the concrete. The ideas for Easter eggs. I don't have anything quite yet. Doesn't mean we can't have them. It just means I haven't really thought of anything yet. have any ideas, I'm open to suggestions. On this one. Again, we're going to mirror. We have what is essentially the makings of a guard tower. Got some hidden turtles with smiley faces on their shells somewhere. That is doable. Not gonna say it can't be done. It can definitely be done. Bit silly. Again, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Silly. Basically a wall topper. Something to put at the top of the wall to help line it up. A couple of edits here. We're gonna have to make a couple different versions, I think. One hand. I want this to be flush. Wireframe mode. Faces. Make the, this is basically what would typically be an end cap. It would have a midsection, so we'll delete this edge over here, but before I go any further, I want to get a Stanley Parable type thing with a voice saying at first. I just thought they'd broken the map, but as it turns out it was all part of the design all along. Cool for the textures. There probably is, but I make all of my own textures, so I would have to probably configure a tool like that from the get-go every time. Not to say that it wouldn't be useful, it would be very, very useful. Tops, sides, that's also a side, bottom, also a side, those, that goes with those. Catwalk here. I can live with that. Here. Snap that there, snap that there. Thinking this, we're gonna go like this. Doesn't line up quite as well as I would like. Probably cover it with some trim though. Option. Sometimes covering it up with trim is the better option anyways. Get a little bit more surface detail. Now for this one, I think we're also going to use this. Might not hurt to use this again. Try. Bad. Base correction on. Definitely need that. So I can line this up with the edge here. Not quite convinced of that yet. Better than I was thinking. Yeah, not bad actually. So, mid cap or mid-length end cap. Put them on top of walls. Go from there. I think I'm ready to actually. Technically, I think I might keep those separate. Nice to be able to like add those supports even if I'm on a piece like this. Or like this. for the time being. Also, probably be nice to be able to do this too. Fun. Go ahead and name this pillar base. Pillar extension. Pillar half. Pillar supports. Watchtower. Hub. Wall. Wall, cap, end. Wall, cap, mid. $7:28. My stream time at? Hour and 20 minutes. We'll keep going. But everything that's UV mapped and ready to go, put on this side. I'm ready to export this. What I will do is I'll come in here. I'll grab all of this stuff like this. I'll export it. Now, because I want a flat surface to kind of model on here, take this hexagonal foundation, put my dude here at 0. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Him at 0. I'm gonna round this off to 0. Because it's more important that we have just a general outline here. More important that we get close to having nice round numbers than anything. Extrude. Now this, I brought my scale figure over here for a reason. Sure, we've got enough space to move a camera around in here. Want decently high ceilings. Basically what I'm spend some time doing on some of these streams is building out the components for building interiors that will also like be suitable for use as building exteriors. So I could probably wrap it up here soon if it's important. But what I'm going to be going over here, the next few streams that I do artwork on, I'm going to be filling out components for creating interior buildings or buildings with interiors. So, like when we have a building that we want to walk into, we'll have the necessary that a reality. That means walls, doorways, ceilings, and all sorts of furniture. Ideas? Okay. I probably won't be on too much longer. Let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and that face because we're not gonna need. Want a little bit of overlap here in the ground, just probably not that much. Ideally, we would have some sort of foundation. Excuse me. Kind of foundation block to use with this. So. Put down a foundation and then build the walls on top of that. Come on. I'm gonna try and get as much texture variation out of this stuff. I try to rotate the faces as often as I can. We're gonna add... Actually, you know what? Go ahead and line this stuff up. Top cap, what we'll do is texture on top. Then start snapping walls together. Of course, we would come in here and probably do something like spin some of these around so that they're not all facing the same direction. Slightly different wall patterning in there. And of course, this will also need some kind of pillar. Help dress it up. Here in a second. A pillar like this is probably not going to go in every single place. I want to use it to cover up seams more than anything. What we're going to do unwrap. This stuff, we want all this on the same texture. Want all of this on the same texture. All of these on the same texture. Same with these. And these. Alright. Where are these from? Oh, those are from the top. But moment. had the sudden sensation to sneeze. Let my hand off the mouse just quickly enough, I think, to avoid my hand sending the mouse flying all over the place. So I need to find a spot to put this trim at. Probably use that a little too much on other larger things. What's that gonna look like? This stuff. Want something that's square, but probably not that. Probably get away with that. Highly recommend to everybody who wants to be a 3D artist to practice this at least once for life. Even just as an experiment. Because you will absolutely walk away from this methodology a far better 3D modeler, mapper, than kind of don't like that on there. Probably live with it if I had to, but I have other textures I can use. That one too much. A little too much gray in there. Something a little bit more than texture. Got like warning signs on it. Could go with the padding. Be a bad idea. If it goes into a pub, no. you don't want your customers banging each other's heads against the wall if they get into a fight. Edges here, I'm going to put centerpiece. I think I know exactly what I want to put up here. Maybe. Have to see how it looks. Get away with some stretching. As long as it's not too crazy. That's not too crazy. Not so horribly noticeable that somebody get the emissive texture on it. This, I want trim that up a little bit. I'm gonna go one step further here. Grab these, inset the faces, down a little bit. Put an edge loop, edge loop, edge loop. Edge loop, edge loop. Here. Out just a little bit. Create a little bit of surface variance. I think I'm actually going to go one step further. But what I am going to do is head and pillar. I totally forget that side. I did. Damn it. Now let's try this again. Double check what colors I have available to me. Yeah, I have a rather large set of colors here. Well, maybe not necessarily large, but I'm gonna delete those. Gate. Blue, yellow, white, orange. Oops, yes I did. All still more or less in the same. They're all gonna pretty much go to the same place. Alright. Now we need to do one more thing. Need an exterior version. Version that's going to face the exterior. Edge, face, grid fill. Here. These are pretty much going to get the same texture, more or less. Vary it up a little bit here and there. I think for this one, I am going to go with this little concrete. Got interior, exterior. And just little C. Generally speaking, I try to name things as I go, because otherwise you're going to end up like where I am with the fighter that I've been working on, where I've basically not named anything. and as a result, I'm gonna have to go back through and name everything at the end. Anyways, alright, so. Alright, well, I think I'm gonna call it here. It's all coming together more or less pretty well. Till next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you out on the frontier.